Welcome to the Redhead Reveal podcast. I am Jenn Pinkerton, your Redhead host, a psychotherapist, writer, speaker, the private practice owner of Pinkerton Psychotherapy, and a connection expert. I help people reveal their connectedness within their relationships and sexuality, understanding root causes of beliefs and behaviors that hold them back from success, and assist them to returning to the person that they are born to be before they were limited by trauma, societal or social concerns, or attachment wounds. Redhead Reveal is here to share concerns and questions, provide interviews with thought leaders and friends, and to hold space to discuss life struggles and encourage vulnerability, authenticity, growth, and self-awareness. Okay, welcome today, guys. I have somebody amazing in store for you. If you've ever wondered about dating, this is it. This is your chance. Today, I have Talia Koren on my podcast to talk about her amazing experience where she went on 200 dates with over 60 people in 10 months. Yes, you heard that correctly. 200 dates, 60 people in 10 months. And this ultimately led her to finding her right match, her longtime love. So with that note, Talia, thanks for joining us. I can't wait to hear about this.
Thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to get into it.
So how did this start? Give me an idea of how this quest, this journey began for you to want to even put yourself out there in that way and to have such a commitment for 200 dates.
Absolutely. So it started with, what I learned in therapy. I've been in therapy for many years, and I was in a relationship for 6 years with someone who, we had the classic anxious avoidant dynamic. And
we talk about that a lot here on the podcast.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while, but I did get the courage to leave, even though we lived together, we had finances together, we were about to get engaged, all that stuff. I was 29. It was like that make or break moment, and I left. And my motivation was honestly wanting to put everything I learned in therapy into practice in the dating world, because I got into that relationship in my early 20s. I didn't know anything. And then I felt like at 29, after all this experience, I knew a lot more. Not everything, just a lot more. So that was really my motivation of like, okay, I want to test out all these things I've learned in therapy, everything I know about attachment now. And all the advice I was getting from experts that I listened to, their podcasts, their Instagrams, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, you're speaking my language. When I hear anyone say that they're applying attachment concepts, attachment theory, and even understanding your own attachment style, it's just music to my ears. So I love hearing that. It seems like that took a lot of bravery and a lot of commitment to do that. For someone like me, I have been out of the dating market for a long time. I've been with my husband for a decade. So I can't even imagine. What did that feel like? I mean, give me an idea, an insight into your experience of what that was like.
Jennifer, I had to say, it was euphoric. I was so happy leaving that relationship. It was one of those situations where everything in my life was going pretty well, like my work, my friends, and just my self-care. But the relationship was the one thing causing me anxiety. And I knew that was a sign of like, okay, I need to just get out of this. And after that, I felt so good. It was scary. It was definitely really hard, really hard, because we lived together. We had to like break a lease, we had a lot of things to untangle, but I think we were very amicable. So luckily there was not a lot of drama after it was over.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And then you dove immediately into?
No, I took 3 months off. I took 3 months. Okay. I took 3 months to myself. I traveled. I did the eat, pray, love thing in Italy. It was more like eat, walk, eat. But I went to Italy. I hung out with my family for a little bit, and I said, okay, I need 3 months to just focus on myself, get it together, get an apartment. I had to get a car, all these things, and then get on the apps. And I hit the ground running with that.
And it sounds like you really gave yourself the space to heal, that time for your self-care and to really reset.
Yes. Yeah. And I also it's like, who are you after coming out of a breakup? I mean, I definitely didn't know within 3 months, but I'm glad I gave myself that time. I was not ready to date. Even when I started dating, I wasn't ready for a relationship. I would tell people that I was meeting that I was not ready.
Mm-hmm. So you were upfront and kind of transparent about getting out of something serious. Okay,
absolutely.
Great. And so this was on multiple apps that you did all these dates? Okay, so you were just exploring every option out there. And then I think you have a podcast, right? Dating Intentionally. where you
Mhm.
talk about navigating dating and how to do that in a very confident way with ease. Because, again, I've been out of that market for a while, but with my own clients and people I work with, I understand, that it can be so challenging.
Yes, it is. It's so challenging. It's so scary because when you're in that early dating phase, there's nothing to grab onto but
Hmm.
yourself, really. And that's what I'm trying to help people work towards.
Hmm.
And it's like we want, especially for women, especially in your early 30s, you really want to just get the partner so you can start building a life with someone. And it's tough. There's a lot of pressure, internal and external.
I agree with that completely. I think the pressure is unbelievable about it, frankly. Um,
Yeah.
so, knowing that pressure exists and knowing how hard it is, what is something that you could say to our audience that you feel like is one of your top tips that you can give to somebody, when out
Yes.
there navigating the dating world?
So something that really helped me a lot was, and it took me a while to wrap my head around this, but was to live my life as if I would not find a partner, which I knew was probably not going to happen because I put so much energy into finding a partner, which
Mhm.
that did happen. But I was ready for that outcome. Like, okay, what am I going to do in the next 5 years if I just don't meet anyone that I
Mhm.
want to be in a relationship with? And what does that look like? And being really comfortable with that helps you date from a much more secure place because you know you're going to be okay no matter what. Even now, like I'm engaged, we're getting married in September. And if things don't work out, I know I'm going to be okay.
And that is the piece that I think so many people miss. And that does go back to the fundamental concept of attachment style. Everybody wants the holy grail of being securely attached, but, we have these trauma responses, we have these traumatic experiences, things that really get in the way of that. And learning your attachment style and understanding what you're bringing to the relationship can be such a fundamental change. And I hear you saying that you were really approaching this with the concept of, I am safe. I mean, that's the real hidden
Yes.
message here. I am safe.
Yes, exactly. And that helped me have more fun. See, what part of the reason I started dating intentionally is because I realized my friends around my same age were not having fun dating and I was having a blast. I felt like the Bachelorette. I was, I was dating. I'm advocate for multi-dating, which is just like talking to multiple people at the same time. You're not sleeping with or like being in a relationship with people at the same time, just, entertaining different options. Um,
Well, it
and
kind of
that,
goes back to the age-old way of what courting used to be about. That
right.
was how originally the concept of courting was. And I think a lot of people
Yeah.
use that along the way and become immediately serious with someone, immediately all in. And, those very intense, very heavy, super serious relationships early on just don't last. The fundamentals are missing.
Exactly. That's why I really had to teach myself how to slow down. Like when I entered the dating world, I think I had the mentality of a 23-year-old because that's like where my dating left off. So I
Yeah.
had to catch up really quickly. Oh, I don't have to like jump into bed with someone on the first date. I don't have to do like be the cool girl to get someone to like me. I am great. Like I really had to learn that. And then I would say I spent a lot of time getting serious about getting over my breakup that I had to hunker down, read some books, get back into therapy, all this stuff. And then I would say 1 year, I wanted to be single for a whole year before got
Hmm.
into another relationship. And so I did. It happened like a month after the 1 year mark. And
Hmm.
that's when I met my fiance. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And congratulations on that too.
Thank you.
But I want to circle back with what you said
Yeah.
because I feel like it's such an important, really soundbite I want to go back to. Is you said, I don't have to be the cool girl. And I see so many times, I bear witness to see people who believe that they have to be something that's very false, it's not authentic, in order to attract the kind of person they want to attract. And I think that to hear that you've done this identity building where you really have a concept of who you are and you don't put your happiness in anybody else's pocket. It's truly all about how you feel and you're going to be safe, as we mentioned before, and you don't have to be the cool girl. I mean, these are all fundamentals that I think are so important. And I'm so excited to hear that this is what you're out there sharing and putting out to the world.
Yes. I mean, I really believe that if we show up authentically, that the right person is going to be attracted to that and everyone else is just they're not for you. And that's okay. When you're looking for one special person, you're not going to like everyone and not everyone's going to like you. And you have to accept that. And it makes it easier. Imagine if you did like everyone or if everyone did like you, that would make this so much harder. I want people to show up as themselves and not cater to what they think the person sitting across from them wants. It's just setting yourself up for it's almost manipulation, even though it's not intentionally manipulation, it is.
Well, it is because, I talk about the ladder of getting to true connection a lot. And in order to achieve true connection with someone, we have to start off on the lowest rung, which is being authentic, showing up as who we truly are. So the next step we can get to is vulnerability and actually sharing our hopes and dreams and fears and traumatic experiences and really having that bond form. And then that bond can be strengthened by the next step of the ladder to actually achieve intimacy, physically and emotionally. And then the holy grail of that is that connection. And so yes. If we miss that first step and we don't start off with authenticity, I think it's very difficult to get back there. I think that you've now created a foundation that's fraught with a lot of other things and it gets in the way.
Absolutely.
You also talked about right there about, what I hear is the internalization that a lot of people do. If you're rejected by someone, what's wrong with me? They don't like me. It's about me. And it's so refreshing to hear you drive home that concept. So tell me, let's go a little bit more into that, about how
yes.
you feel about that and what you share with people about that.
Well, first of all, just like I said before, rejection is part of the process. So it's the sooner we're just okay with that, the better. And yes, as you were saying, rejection is really more about the other person, not you. It's about their preferences, their fears, desires, trauma, everything that they're trying to protect themselves. All these things are coming into the mix and it's really not about you. It's very rare that we do something that actually makes someone reject us. It has to be kind of extreme. Like maybe acting out or maybe lying, like something that is very obvious.
They're usually the red flags. They're the actual red flags of what can happen, because I would encourage anyone, if you seeing certain red flags, then there's no reason to continue the day. You just end that. So you're hitting on those. But I agree with you that so much about something not being a good fit, which I prefer to think about, we're not a good fit rather than rejection. Rejection has such a negative connotation to it.
Agree.
But not being a good fit is just simply that we all have our predetermined preferences and things that we like or interested in. We also have sexual imprints that happen when we're younger about things that we're attracted to and things that we're not. And none of those things have anything to do with the other person.
Right.
It's all about what's in our head, and it's about the story we tell ourselves in our head.
Absolutely. It's very freeing to me. Yeah. Rejection. I mean, I did a lot more rejecting than I got rejected in my journey, but it did not get to me at all.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, on that note, how did those people that were being rejected, how did they feel about that? Did you have any pushback about that was negative?
I'm lucky. No, I did not receive any negative or aggressive responses to a text I was at. I did it in person a few times because there were some people I got past like 1 month and maybe we were exclusive and it was worthy of an in-person kind of breakup at that point. But most of them were just texts, and usually it was just like, thanks for letting me know. I appreciate you telling me. Okay, that's okay. Like some people were just like, okay, good luck. All good. Yeah, but it does happen. I will say there are some people out there who will respond aggressively, and then they're just proving your decision. They're just validating your decision to reject them.
I agree with that completely. I think that it's kind of like when somebody shows us who they are, we ought to believe them. What you're seeing is what you're getting. Yes. That's what it is. On the topics of your podcast, Dating Intentionally, you talk about figuring out the needs in dating. You talk about you're winning on the dating apps, dating outside of type, which I thought that was really interesting. Tell me about that. Dating outside of type. What do you mean by that?
So I'm sure anyone listening, if you use the apps, there's probably a type of person, how they look, or maybe what they're into or their job or something that you tend to swipe right on. Like in the beginning, I'm very into guys who are like outdoorsy and kind of rugged. And maybe I have like a tendency towards like stockier guys. And that is what I was swiping right on. But then I realized that I'm missing out on potentially great matches because I was trying to be more aligned with my needs, right? What do I need in a partner? Which really has nothing to do with if they like rock climbing and if they're muscular, So I intentionally started to swipe right on men who I think I could have a good conversation with. That was kind of my bar. Obviously, they live near me, they don't smoke, all these other things I care about. But then that's when I started actually having more really good prospects for me, more based on what I need. So I ended up with a guy who was totally not my physical type or how I would describe it back then. Obviously, I'm very attracted to him. I'm not saying date people you're not attracted to, but it's like being open is so important. You might be overlooking you're an amazing match.
Absolutely. I mean, being open-minded and really on the idea that we don't really know what we're going to get. And if we can show up with curiosity, I think that just expands us so much more and gives us so much of a wider berth to explore,
Yeah.
getting to know.
And something I hear a lot about from daters is like, I can't go on a date if I'm not attracted to them. It's like, well, actually, the attraction comes later. It's you don't have to feel that, and you're not going to be attracted to a 2D version of someone on a phone screen with their 6 pictures and their 3 prompts. You are going to feel that attraction as you interact with them in person. So if you're on the apps and you're trying to feel attracted to a profile, you're going to go on very few dates. Yeah.
And I love that you say that up front to people. You're starting off saying, look, this is the approach and the mindset you're going to have to be successful in this.
Yes.
And that being said, how do you tell people to navigate all those dating apps and to keep up with that? Because that's a common complaint I hear about people is, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to manage all that. And especially people who maybe have not been in the dating world in a long time. And so the apps in general is a new and foreign concept.
The first thing is to remember that the apps are they're opportunity marketplaces, as you would call them. Like,
oh, I love really that. Wait, opportunity marketplaces.
It's not my phrase. It's not my phrase. I've heard it somewhere else. But it's like the point is it's not an application for your husband. It's like you're just seeing who you could talk to. I think of it as the equivalent of walking into a room with like a name tag and a fun fact. And so it's like, oh, you can just talk to someone and then see where it goes. So that's like the first thing. If you're new to the apps or if you're kind of feeling burnt out, think about it just like, who can I talk to that is interesting? So the second thing is I would recommend using no more than 2 apps at one time. I used Hinge and Bumble together. I know some dating coaches really like Tinder because there are still the most people on Tinder of any app. Like that's just where more people are, and people just get off that app really quickly, which is the point. So what else? I would say also big, just generally for your profile, always say what you want. Don't say what you don't want. Because if you put in like, no, I don't know, whatever, you're like, no smokers, for whatever reason, smokers will just see the word smokers and reach out to you.
Well, that's actually neuroscience is where the brain works. It's same reason why, we don't tell a child to stop running around the pool because they'll just keep running. We have to say,
right.
But I can see how it certainly apply to that. What do you tell people about their pictures on a profile? What do you tell them about what they're putting out there about themselves?
So I think the general rule of thumb is, and look, this is a dating app. There's an algorithm. So you want to make nice with the algorithm. That is just the cold, hard truth. This isn't your Instagram account. So I think having a mix of pictures of your face, like shoulders up and some full body, making sure that your face is clearly visible. Also, do not put other people in your pictures. I don't care if they're your best friend. I don't care if it's just like your dad. There should just be you, because anyone else in those pictures is going to confuse people. And I promise people don't think you don't have friends if you don't have anyone in your profile. I promise that's not what they're worried about. So those are just some general tips. Yeah, it's distracting.
If you have somebody else in there. I mean, I've had clients talk to me or show me profiles of someone they're thinking, and they're like, which person do you think it is on this? I mean, if you're having to question who it is in there, that you obviously missed the boat of what you were trying to do. Yeah. And also, I mean, think about who you want to attract. So if you want to attract someone who isn't a big drinker or partier, don't put pictures of yourself partying, that kind of thing. I like that advice. So this is really stellar. I love this. What about your advice for when they go out on that first date?
Yes. Keep it short and sweet. I think a first date is a vibe check, especially from the apps. This doesn't really count if you're meeting somewhere else, like work or whatever other activities. If it's from the app, it's just a quick coffee, a quick drink. Some people are like, that's a low effort date. No, you can say, like, you don't want to be stuck on a dinner date with someone that is a total dud. So do the coffee, do the walk, do the quick one drink, an hour max, and then you can decide if you want a second date. Okay.
And how many of those did you do? Of those 200 dates?
I did 64 first dates.
So 64 were first dates. Wow.
Yeah. And I tracked everything. That's why I have this data. Like I have a note in my phone where I tracked everything.
You did?
Yes. Awesome. That was part of the intentional part, right? Like I wanted to learn my patterns. I wanted to learn why I was choosing certain people, why certain connections ended up going a certain way, and like how to steer myself towards what I was after.
Mhm. And how soon did you begin to make that connection and seeing those patterns and seeing what you were maybe initially drawn to before you started to be a little more open-minded and dating maybe against type?
About 9 months, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because the first solidly 6 months, I was not over my ex, really. I was kind of
Yeah.
just wanting to get the reps in, right? To
Mhm.
learn, to test, to experiment. And then I was like, okay, I knew I felt ready to be in a relationship when I felt ready to give to someone. Like I
Mhm.
didn't, before I was ready, I didn't want to work on it, right? I didn't want to have to compromise and, do all that. I was like, okay, I'll go out with you 3 times and then that's it. I don't want to deal with your stuff.
Mhm.
But then eventually I became more emotionally available. I wanted to let someone in and deal with their stuff, right? Deal with their traumas, whatever they have going on, and work on it.
Now I have to ask, I mean, because I think everybody listening will want to know what was the worst type of date you had? I mean, we
The
got to
worst, the worst
entertain us a bit
date
here.
I had was actually a dinner date. I did not follow my advice. So I actually talked to this guy on the phone for an hour before we met, which I do recommend doing. I think phone screening and FaceTime screening is a good way to avoid getting catfished and also just to do your vibe check. Like that's totally fine. We talked for an hour and it was a solidly flowing conversation. We
Okay.
met up. The guy asked me one question, which was like, what do you do for work? Like, or telling me like, I had a business. I was like, what's your business? And then he didn't ask me a single question for the rest of the date. It was to the point where I would ask him a question, he would answer, and then I would answer as if he has asked me to. But what made it even worse is I would ask him a question and then he would put a bite of food in his mouth. And then
Oh,
there'd just be
wow.
silence because he's chewing. And I'm like, so then I tried to time my questions around his eating and it just did not work.
That's a
And
lot of work. I mean, you were doing a lot of work to make that happen.
my back hurt from carrying that
I
conversation. Yeah.
bet. I bet it
And
did.
then at the end, he was like, let's do this again. I was like, no.
So, what do you say with that? When you feel like it is a no, what has been your boundary type statement to be able to cut that
I
off?
have a good one for this. So even if I had a good time, actually, I recommend doing this. If they say, let's do this again, I say, let's sleep on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that always, it's a neutral, it's like a little hopeful, but it's not a yes. Because even if the date was really good, you need that time to sleep on it because some people say, let's do this again as a people pleasing behavior. They think that's what you should say. It's like, oh, this is so great. Let's do it again sometime with like no intention of
Right.
doing it again. So let's sleep on it.
Well, and I think saying let's sleep on it actually hits a lot of other marks too, because if you're someone who maybe personally, if you're anxiously attached, saying let's sleep on it gives you the space to not be overly invested. If your person you're dating is somewhat avoidant, they're going to feel really comfortable with that idea. If
Yeah.
there's someone who really has a problem with boundaries, they're going to be angry about it. So to me, that actually, checks a lot of boxes to be able to say that. I really like that.
Yeah, it worked really well for me.
That's wonderful. So, which date was it that you met your now soon to be husband?
So he was number 56, actually.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I still dated people and met people after we met. He was not in my location for the first month.
Oh,
So that he was like moving. He had an apartment and a job.
geographically undesirable at first.
Well, I didn't know that when we matched because
Okay.
he had an apartment and a job in my city where I was. So I knew he was definitely going to be there. It wasn't those like, oh, I'm thinking about moving to Seattle. No, no, no. He was going to be there. And so I was still talking to other people. We met 4 times virtually,
Hmm.
right? Like on a Google Hangout or whatever, and like on the
Yeah.
phone. Then we had our first date, and then I still continued seeing other people for a little bit. And then eventually I was like, you know what? This guy has no red flags, all green flags. And
Hmm.
I hoped with the information I gathered that he would meet my needs that I was looking for.
Hmm. Okay.
And so far I've been right.
That's wonderful. I
Yeah,
love that you've been right. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
he is amazing.
Did he have any feedback or thoughts about this 200 date journey when you told him that he was number 56 along this path for you?
He more got a kick out of it, honestly. He is very accepting, open, non-judgmental. I was the only person he dated in Seattle.
Wow.
But he had plenty of people, few relationships and like app experiences before. So he was like, yeah, I'm good. He met me and he was like, yeah, I don't need to meet anyone else. So he is secure, right?
Well, and he was probably very
Yeah.
attracted to your confidence. And that's something that I want to say to the listeners listening to this. What I hear from you and what I take away from this in all seriousness is a level of certainty about who you are. You were confident in your identity, knowing that no one needed to complete you, knowing that, if it didn't work out, that was fine. Understanding that, you may not be somebody's cup of tea and that's not about you. And that you were also having fun with it.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
know?
I will say I think my confidence is definitely one of the things that made this easier, but also made a lot of people into me.
Sure.
I'm not a model. Like I don't think I'm a 10 by any means, but I think that yeah, showing up and just yeah, being comfortable in my own skin and that gives people room to be themselves, right? Because
Mhm.
I know that sounds weird, but it's like I didn't care if the date didn't pan out. I was
Right.
just there to make that connection, to have fun. It was a social outlet for me. You know, I was working home 9 to 5 all day by myself. And I had friends in Seattle too, but it was like I needed that
Yeah.
just to get out of the house and
Yeah,
do
for
something.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think this has been so amazing. And I want to encourage everybody to go check out your podcast, Dating Intentionally. And I know that's also on Instagram and TikTok to find you too. And I can't wait to kind of hear an episode. I want to hear what people ask. I think this is really interesting and fun, and it so aligns with the work that I do. And I think it's been just really kind of eye-opening. I hope that some of these people that are listening who maybe have been afraid to get on the apps and have been a little bit hesitant to try that, especially if it's foreign to them, especially if it's new, to embrace that and understand how much fun it can be. And it doesn't have to be something that is scary or something that seems, like it's just futile at this point. I mean, look at your success. You're living proof.
Yeah, I want to add just that really quickly that if you're hesitant to get on the apps, you could just go on one date. You don't have to go on 200 like me. You could just do one and see how you feel. Then you can delete the app if it wasn't good for you. You know, it's okay. Just baby steps.
Well, I want to ask you too. I have this guest question. Every
Oh
time
yeah.
someone's on the podcast, I have the question that a prior guest left for you. And
That
so
is
I'm
so
going to
cool.
give that to you. And then I want you to give me one that the next guest will answer as well. So
Okay.
our last guest asked, which is so funny how it aligns sometimes, this is so fitting. But the last guest said, if you let love guide you, what would you do next?
Ooh, okay, let me think. If I let
One more
love
time. If
guide
you
me,
let love guide you, what would you do next?
like today, like after this,
However you want to perceive the question,
I
it's all you.
would
Love guide.
find some way today to make my fiance's life easier. And yeah, that would be one of the things I focus on if I was letting love guide me, which I usually do, but that would be an intention for sure.
That's wonderful. That's a great intention. What question would you like to pose for a future guest?
Okay, my question for a future guest, and I apologize if this has already been asked, but I guess what would you tell your 25-year-old self about this topic
Mm-hmm.
if you knowing what you know now?
Okay, well, we will ask it and stay tuned to hear what that answer is coming up. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and visiting with you, Talia. I think that you're offering such a wealth of advice to people in the dating world. And I love just your spirit and your energy. It's been so refreshing and fun to have you on. So let's stay in touch and talk again soon.
Yes, absolutely. This is so
All
fun.
right.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. All right. Goodbye.